Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you the 19 books I hope to read by the end of this summer. So let's get into it. So some of these books I've actually talked about in my June TBR, but we're going to talk about them again because I really want to get to some of these. Our first one I'm going to just start off with is Four Aunties and a Wedding by Jessie Q. Sutanto. This one I'm really looking forward to reading during the wedding season, but this is actually a second book, so I'll tell you about the first one. This one is Dial A for Aunties by Jessie Q. Sutanto that I actually read last summer, and it was so good. I laughed out loud so many times. It was hilarious. So this one follows Meddy, and she actually ends up killing her blind date by accident. So she calls her mother and her aunties to help cover it up, and they decide to actually put his body at the bakery that the auntie owns, and it ends up in a cake cooler and being shipped to a billionaire wedding off the coast of California that they have a job at. So Meddy is actually the photographer, one of the aunties is the baker, one of them helps with outfits and just everything. Or they are trying to make sure that this wedding actually brings their wedding business to a full. So they go ahead and get on the boat to go across the water to this wedding and get this cooler back. And Meddy actually ends up bumping into her old college sweetheart that she is still super in love with, and he is actually the manager at this hotel. So all weekend long, they're trying to pull off this wedding, grow their business. She's trying to figure out how to get her ex back into her life, all while trying to escape murder charges. This one was so funny. If you have not read it, you really need to. The Secret Bridesmaid by Katie Birchall is another one about weddings, obviously, but this one takes a little bit of a different route. So this one is about Sophie, who is a professional bridesmaid in London. She is so good at her job that she actually gets hired by Lady Victoria Swan, who used to be a model in the 1970s. So she's a very high person in society. So Sophia actually plays the part as the bride's best friend while she plans their perfect day for them behind the scenes. Since she was hired, another rival wedding has actually popped up on the same exact day. So she's trying to basically win this other wedding for the wedding of the year. So she goes ahead and starts planning, but then she meets Victoria's daughter, and she is just out to make Sophie's life a nightmare. And then she meets Victoria's son that is completely off limits to her from now until forever, and that is so sad because he is going to be her love interest. So we'll see how she works her way around that one, along with trying to plan the wedding of the century. Our next one is A Cuban Girl's Guide to Tea and Tomorrow, and this one I picked up because actually it's just adorable. I actually didn't pick it up. I think my friend gave it to me for Christmas last year. And this one is super cute. It sounds super sweet. This one is actually about Lila, who has everything completely planned out. She plans to graduate high school, move in with her best friends. She's going to live happily ever after with her boyfriend, and she's going to become the head baker at her grandma's bakery. But all of those plans explode, and her parents worry about her mental health, so they send her away to live with family for 3 months in England. And everything about England just doesn't feel like home. Nothing feels like Miami, Florida, until she meets a tea shop clerk named Orrin, who decides that he's going to cheer her up and show her what England really is about and what it has to offer her, and becomes her summer tour guide. So as they're doing all these fun adventures, she's finally starting to realize that maybe her old plans weren't really what she needs for the future. But that also means staying in England with Orrin and saying goodbye to her old life and everything that she loves in Florida. So hopefully she figures that one out by the end of the book. That seems super crazy to being just an 18-year-old girl trying to make that big of a life decision. But we will see how she does that because I couldn't even imagine. Our next book is The Rehearsals by Enette Christie. And this is called The Rehearsals because it's actually one of those lovely Groundhog Day kind of books. I've read so many of them, but none of them let me down. I don't know what it is about this kind of plot, but it always works for me. This one is actually about Megan and Tom, and they are engaged to be married, but their families just completely hate each other, and they have 12 years of history behind that hatred. They are actually getting married on San Juan Island, and they make it all the way to the rehearsal dinner until everything just explodes. It becomes the most horrible night of their lives, and at the end of that night, they just decide to call it quits and that their families are not going to get along enough for them to make this marriage work, and they should just split up right now before having to deal with it any further. Until the next morning when they wake up in that time loop where they just keep reliving the worst day of their life. And they're trying to figure out how to get to their wedding day, if there is going to be a wedding day, and how to make that rehearsal dinner actually go the way that they want it to go. I'm really hoping that this one turns out super charming and super cute, and I just cannot imagine calling it quits with someone I think that I'm going to spend the rest of my life with, all because of how much our families dislike each other. That just sounds really horrible. So I'm really rooting for this couple. The Romantic Agenda by Claire Can is another one that I've actually never read a book with an asexual character in it, so I'm really curious how this one's going to turn out. This one is kind of a word jumble. Let me make sure I'm getting all of their names right. This one is about Joy, and she is just turned 30, and she has a best friend named Malcolm that she's always been in love with, and he doesn't know she's in love with him, but she thinks that it's just been too long and their friendship has grown so well that she should not tell him still. Until Malcolm comes and tells her that he actually found a girl that he thinks is his perfect match, and he thinks that he's going to fall in love with her. He invites her to a weekend getaway with him and Summer. So she decides to go and thinks that she will just take this weekend to make Malcolm jealous and prove that she's really the one that he should be with. Until she gets there and meets Summer's ex-boyfriend, Fox, who decides that he is going to help her with her plan to get Malcolm jealous, and they are going to pretend that they are falling in love with each other during this weekend together, and that's going to make Malcolm super jealous. Then he's going to realize that he really wants to be with Joy. But as their fake dating progresses, Joy realizes that maybe Malcolm isn't the perfect person for her, and maybe he is better just being her best friend. This sounds super good. It sounds a little crazy, like how do you just end up being a third wheel and then and then meeting Summer's ex-boyfriend at the vacation? Like, it just seems super crazy and super good. The Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas has been a lot of places. This book I actually couldn't even find at like Barnes and Noble's last summer, and I actually ended up ordering it because it just was nowhere, but I wanted to read this so bad. And now I've heard so many mixed reviews about it, being like so hyped up that it actually didn't live up to that hype. But I'm going to jump into it anyways because it's enemies versus lovers, and that is one of my favorite tropes. So this one is A Wedding in Spain, the most infuriating man, 3 days to convince your family you're actually in love. So this is enemies to lovers and fake dating, which are perfect. Love them both. This one follows Catalina, and her sister is getting married in Spain, but Catalina has grown this white lie about an American boyfriend to her family for so long that it's just getting out of control. So she decides that she needs to find a date to her sister's wedding in Spain, so that she can prove that she's really over her ex-boyfriend, who now has a new fiance and is actually attending this wedding also. And no other than Aaron Blackford offers to participate in this fake dating scheme and go along with her. And she cannot stand him. She thinks that he is agitating, blood boiling, and insufferable man. But he is her only option. So she goes ahead and does it. This book, I think most of the reviews that I've seen, they just don't think it needs to be this long, because this is a very long book for the kind of trope it is. But we will jump into it anyways, because I'm really excited to still read that one. The Star-Crossed Sisters of Tuscany by Lori Nelson Spalman is another one of those magical realism books that I'm trying to get into a little bit. And this one sounds really good. This one has romance in it, but mostly it is about the vacation, the Tuscany, going to Italy is going to give you all of those really pretty vibes, like the cover. This one actually follows a family that was cursed 200 years ago so that every second-born daughter can never find lasting love. Amelia is single and she thinks that it's just a coincidence, and then Lucy thinks that they are all hexed. So they both receive a call from their great auntie, and she vows that if they accompany her on this trip to her homeland in Italy, that on their 18th birthday, they will find true love and break the curse forever. So this one sounds super good. I can't wait to see their trip and their summer in Italy and see if they actually break that curse. Our next book that I hope to get to is Wait For It by Jen McKinley. This book is supposed to be super good. It's about Annabelle, who is twice divorced. She is 30 and she just dodged another proposal from one of her ex-husbands. So she's super eager to get out of Boston, and that is exactly what she does when her dream job at a graphic design firm opens up in Arizona. So she jumps on the plane, she rents a house from a landlord that she assumes is a grumpy old man until she finally meets Nick. And he actually is about her age, and he is in a wheelchair because of a stroke that he had recently. So this book actually follows Annabelle and Nick, and they're trying to figure out how to enjoy life again. And since there is no physical reason for his paralysis, they are just trying to help each other learn how to embrace life and overcome fears that will hopefully overcome his paralysis by the end of the book. I kind of have that vibe. I don't know if that's why they're telling you that there's no physical reason for his paralysis or not. So hopefully they figure out that journey together. It sounds really good. Our next book is The Beach Trap by Allie Brady, and this book follows two half-sisters, and they actually meet for the first time when they are 12 at summer camp, and they have this unmistakable bond, and they become best friends by the end of camp. But then they find out that they actually share the same dad. So 15 years later, their father actually passes away and leaves them this beach house. And Katie really wants to keep the beach house. She wants to renovate it because she has all of these childhood memories from there. And Blake just wants to move on with her life, pretend her dad doesn't exist still, get the money from selling the place. So to come to a decision, they decide to renovate it for the summer, and then Kate is going to buy Blake out. So this one is going to basically follow the friendship and the bonds that they made and them turning into sisters. But they do both have a little bit of a summer romance, but that's just not the main purpose of the book. So this one sounds really good, and I can't wait to get to that one. The Royals Next Door by Karina Hale is another one of those royal kind of books that giving me those royal vibes. This one actually follows Piper, and she is an elementary school teacher. She's a romance book reader, and she has a podcast that she does secretly at night. She actually moves to this little island, to this community, because she is helping her mentally ill mother, and she is just not fitting in, haven't actually accepted her into this community. And then one summer, the royal family of Britain actually move into the rental next door for the summer. Then she has new neighbors that is actually a prince and a princess, and they bring along with them their gorgeous bodyguard named Harrison Cole. And she knows that he is a no-nonsense kind of guy, but every time she bumps into him, it's just more confusing and hotter every single time. And then when she is swept into a royal scandal, Harrison actually has to protect her as well as her trying to protect herself from all of this chaos. So this one sounds super good. I can't wait to get into it. I'm really getting those summer vibes. I mean, it's so cute. It looks so funny. I'm hoping that it's just everything that I want it to be. From the Jump by Lacey Walden is another one of those books that just looks so welcoming for summer and so welcoming for a vacation. This one follows Liv, and she is the absolute yes woman, but one day she finally decides to say no, and she quits her job and goes on vacation with her group of friends from college to South Africa. And in that group is none other than emotionally unavailable Lucas. But something on their vacation happens that kind of brings a wedge between all of these friends. So when they get home and she's trying to deal with the fallout of quitting her job and trying to get everybody back together, she just keeps finding herself drawn to Lucas and trying to get all their friends to stay together while trying to figure out her new journey in life. This one sounds like it could be messy, could be really wonderful. I'm hoping that they give you some, it's kind of a small book, but I'm hoping that some of their trip to South Africa is involved in that one. Island Time by Georgia Clark is one of those books that sounds super good and super intriguing. This book follows the Kellys and the Lees and their families, or these families are enemies. They don't like each other. They have 12 years of history not liking each other, but their two daughters are kind of like Romeo and Juliet and have gotten married. So they take this family vacation to this isolated island where only them and two workers of the island are actually present, and a volcano erupts close by, so they get stranded for 6 whole weeks. And while they're on this island during this 6 weeks, they have to figure out who they want, what they want, and all of these questions just pile in on top of everybody while being stranded. This sounds super good. Again, because it's on my TBR, I can't wait to jump into it, and I'm hoping that their 6 weeks is not totally chaotic. Heidi Swan's Sunshine and Sweet Peas in Nightingale Square sounds super good. The only problem is it's super long. That's why I have not jumped into it yet. It doesn't give you too much information other than Kate. She is on the run from her soon-to-be ex-husband, but he is not ready to let her go. So she stumbles across this little nook in this cute little community in Nightingale Square, and she falls in love with the residents and starts to have a new home until a developer comes in and threatens to destroy the Victorian mansion in Nightingale Square. And then an unlikely stranger comes in and tries to help save the Victorian mansion and tries to help Kate as well. Every Summer After by Carly Fortune is another one of those books that I've already talked about in my previous TBR, but it's one of those books that I can't wait to read this summer. This book follows 6 summers and 1 weekend, all with hazy afternoons, warm summer night, and Percy and Sam. So Percy and Sam have these 6 summers where they're falling in love, they're becoming wonderful friends, until Percy makes the biggest mistake of her life one summer and she never goes back. But trying to push Sam out of her life is super hard and she can't get over him. And then she gets a phone call saying that Sam's mother has actually passed away and she is invited to the funeral. So she returns to the island for one last weekend and their bonds are just as strong as they ever were. But she has to figure out if they can get over the past so that they can see if they really have a future together. Everybody has read this book. Everybody has loved this book. Friends to lovers. I'm really excited to see this 6 summer timeline and this 1 weekend. Happy Place by Emily Henry is another one of those books that is the most anticipated romance novel of the year, so I can't wait to jump into this. This one is about Harriet and Wayne, who have been in love forever until 6 months ago when they decided to call it quits, but they're still invited to an annual beach cottage in Maine with their group of college friends. So they don't want to tell their friends that they're not together anymore, so they decide to come up with this little scheme and play that they're still dating for that week. But it's really hard for them to hide that they're broken up, hide their real feelings around all these people that know them the best. And once this week starts and they're trying to fool everybody around them, they start to decide that maybe they're the ones that are being fooled and they need to get back together because they're not actually ready to call it quits yet. I'm super excited to read this. I'm actually going to be doing a blog later this week where I actually read this book for my blog. I am so excited. Shipped by Angie Hockman. I am super excited to read because I love The Hating Game, and this kind of sounds just like it. This one is about Henley, and she is a workaholic marketing manager for a cruise line, and she is up for the promotion of her lifetime, but then she gets a little upset when she finds out her arch nemesis Graham is also up for that promotion, and he is their remote social media manager. So the only time that they've actually seen it or have actually been in contact is over really rude emails to each other. So they both have to take this cruise to the Galapagos Islands, and during this cruise they need to create a pitch on how to get more bookings, and by the end of it they're going to do that pitch, and whoever comes up with the best ideas wins the promotion. Now that Henley has met Graham in person, she's getting a whole new vibe of him, and he is definitely not what she expected. And now that they're spending this much time together and this vacation on this cruise, they start to actually create a really strong relationship, and Henley decides that maybe this promotion of a lifetime isn't really what she wants if it's going to come between her and Graham and their chance at love. I can't wait to read this once again, but I think it's going to be super good, and I think it's going to be one of those 5 out of 5 stars just because I loved The Hating Game so much. One Italian Summer by Rebecca Surley is also one of those books that was around everywhere last summer, and I just could not stand all the hype. So I evidently just waited until this summer to read it. This one is a magical realism book, and I haven't read too many of magical realisms, but I'm slowly picking more up. This one follows Katie and her mother, Carol, and they were going to go on a vacation in 2 weeks to Italy and follow the very same journey that Carol took when she was younger. But her mother suddenly passes away, and Katie does not know what to do. She doesn't know if she should take this trip because her mom was everything to her. She was her best friend. So ultimately she decides to take this trip, and when she gets there, everything changes. She's swept away by all the kindness and all the views until she finally bumps into Carol as a 30-year-old suntanned woman. And then they get to take this trip together. At the end of this trip, Katie obviously has to figure out a way to say goodbye to the new and found version of her mother that she never knew and go back home. And this book just seems like it might be a really hard read, but it sounds like it's going to really go over grief and how Katie is going to figure out that her mother is still always with her even though she's gone, and see how she's going to move past that when she gets home. We only have a couple left. Starry Eyes by Jen Bennett. Jen Bennett is one of those authors that I really, really enjoy. All of her contemporaries have something different to offer and is just a really good YA novels. This one follows best friends turned enemies, Zori and Leanin, and they actually go on a group camping trip that goes horribly wrong, and they end up stranded in the wilderness together with nobody else but themselves. So they have to work together and to overcome nature and each other's little jabs at each other to find their way back to safety. And maybe under the starry nights, they will realize that what they really need is each other. And hopefully they come out of this with a whole newfound relationship. Our last but not least is Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welch. This one I haven't gotten to yet. I'm super excited to. I have not actually even watched Love and Gelato on Netflix because I was waiting to read the book. So hopefully I can go ahead and watch that this summer as well. This one I wasn't too sure what it was about, but I knew that it was everywhere, so I was really excited to read this. This one actually follows Lena, who's spending the summer in Tuscany. It was her mother's dying wish that she reunites with her father, and she doesn't know why she needs to reunite with her father because he hasn't been in her life for 16 years. So she goes ahead, takes this trip back to Tuscany, and while she's there, she actually finds a journal that her mother wrote when she lived in Italy. And then she discovers all these new places. She discovers new romance, little hidden bakeries. She discovers art. And she does all of this and follows in her mother's footsteps with Ren, a charming boy that she meets in Italy. But as they uncover secrets about her father and her mother and herself, her point of view might just change. I can't wait to jump into this, Italy and Tuscany. Maybe I'll read this a little after or before I read the other one about Italy and Tuscany and see kind of what vibes I get from both of them. This one sounds a little more romancy and sounds super sweet, super cute. And it also looks like it's going to be a very quick read because the words are really big. So I can't wait to jump into this one so that I can go ahead and watch the movie. I believe it's a movie. It might be a series, but I will figure that one out when I get there. All right, friends, so that is all the books I have to share with you today. I'm so glad you stuck around to see them all, and if you've read any of them and you've enjoyed them, let me know down in the comments. Otherwise, I will see you on the next video. Bye!